Hi again, everyone. I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Anonymous, and here's her story. Dear Ollie, this is something I have never done before, speaking publicly about my life. As a wife and mother in her 40s, I feel as though I have come to a kind of nowhere land, and I need your guidance. Your ability to discern and accurately predict the outcome of situations presented on your channel is downright amazing. I am sorry for the hell you had to go through to attain this gift, but know the healing you have provided to so many is nothing short of miraculous. Thank you. Here it goes. My 74-year-old mother is Puerto Rican. She was born to a 38-year-old man who purchased his 18-year-old bride from a Catholic covenant in PR. Nice. Nice. Oh, God. My grandmother, Nana, and her sister were sent away to the convent because their parents were too poor to properly care for them. The nuns were very abusive there. So at the age of my grandmother's consent, 18, she was sold via a large contribution given to them by my grandfather. I don't mean to laugh, but you thought slavery was outlawed back in 1865, huh? No. You can purchase a bride. Well, mail order bride from the Catholic Church. No, mind you. You ever wonder why those Catholic charities flood into poor areas? Easy access. My mother had a brother who recently passed away at age 65. My mother reports that throughout her life, she witnessed her mother being raped by her father, forced to have several inhumane abortions performed on her kitchen table at the direction of her father, who did not want any more children, and was physically hit. At age 16, my mother claimed she had enough of the abuse. She told us that one day her father chased her with a knife, but never provided any other details. It was then that she threatened to run away to New York City and told her mother if she did not come with her, she would never see her again. My grandmother relented, leaving behind her 11-year-old son with the father in Puerto Rico. The brother was the apple of my grandfather's eye, and they both felt he would not be abused by him. She left one kid behind. I hope this isn't a cover story. Could be. Just to come to the United States. At 18, my mother met my father. He was 24 at a church dance. Why would they still have anything to do with the church at that point? My dad came up from a family where with a mother who was severely depressed and had several nervous breakdowns. She would eat from garbage cans, had kleptomania, and would scream advice at movie screens as if the actors could hear her, like, "Don't go in there, it's a trap," or "He's the murderer," and banged her head against the wall while crying. She was a harmless woman who suffered the most torturous existence I could imagine. She was committed numerous times and had subjected to the worst types of treatments. Back in the 70s, mental health protocols were something out of a horrible Stephen King novel. She was thrown into tubs of ice while naked to shock her system, given high-voltage ECT while conscious, straitjacketed and thrown into dark rooms for days, and given core tranquilizers. The whispers in my family claim that my father's mother was prostituted out as a child by her Polish immigrant parents during the Great Depression, as were her 7 brothers and sisters. Something that I now believe as 5 of her 7 siblings committed suicide by throwing themselves in front of subway trains. My paternal grandfather was the kindest and most loving guy you would ever want to know. He took care of my grandmother for her entire life, combing her hair, singing her songs, painting her fingernails, holding her, teaching her to dance, and always called her my pussycat. He went through hell with her mental illness, but never left her side. It was the kind of thing that reminds me now of the movie The Notebook. My grandfather was also a good father to his boys and loved them very much. Unfortunately, my dad, and me and my sister later on, witnessed my mother's breakdowns in person. My grandmother would begin spiraling, hitting her head, screaming and crying. Once my father married and moved out, my grandfather would call his son to help him when the episodes occurred, about 1 to 2 times every few years. My sister and I were brought along at my mother's insistence, as that is what family does in crisis. I must admit that I loathed my grandmother and my resemblance to her. I hated her embarrassing behavior because I didn't understand it. Now I am ashamed that I didn't show any compassion. My mother would tell me all the time that since I looked like the Polish side, I better be careful because this insanity runs in the family. God. So that's something you got to constantly be worried about. Thanks, Mom. Today, my grandmother would probably have been permanently institutionalized. She continued to come home once she stabilized. She would sometimes have 2 to 3 years of normalcy between episodes. She was a doting mother when she was sane, and she really did love her family. She was just so sick. Sounds to me like she would stop taking medication, which is what schizophrenics do. They stop taking their medication until they have a full-on breakdown and then repeat the cycle. And with your grandfather not leaving her side, let's read on. My mother and father married when she was 24 and he was 30. It is my opinion that my mother targeted my father as she saw how caring he was and must have sensed that she could control him because of his nurturing attitude. And she probably looked at his father with the crazy mother and probably does have a nurturing attitude. Look who his mother is. My mother was and still is a stunningly beautiful woman with a perfect figure. She's charismatic, personable, overly complimentary to everyone she meets, and is a chronic do-gooder. My father says today, if he knew then what she really was, he would have run for the hills. I was born 3 years into the marriage, and it was all downhill from there. She was so proud of my blonde hair and green eyes, but lamented that I had a big Polish nose, just like my father's mother. My mother was a stay-at-home mom and constantly complained that I was a difficult baby with horrible colic. Why would you complain? See, like, why would you? I never understood. Why are you complaining now that I was a colicky baby? What do you want me to do about it? Like, what's the point of complaining now about how I was as a baby? My father was a mechanic, got up at 4 a.m. and didn't come home till 7 p.m. He worked 6 days a week. Still, when he came home, my mother would complain about how I drove her nuts all day and she needed to sleep, or else she was going to have a, guess what, nervous breakdown. I found out years later from other family in the apartment building we lived in that I was always sleeping in the high chair or playpen when they would come visit during the day. My dad would stay up with me all night as I had my days and nights confused. He joked that I tried to breastfeed on him. My mother never breastfed me, and used silly songs to sing to me while he was struggling not to pass out on the floor from exhaustion. So what your mother was doing here was getting you to sleep all day so she didn't have to care for you, and then she would lie to your father when you came home to talk about what a pain in the ass colicky baby you were, so that would explain why she was exhausted, needed to go to sleep, and why you were up all night. Your mother's a liar. Pathological liar. And, you know, I could bring Charlene in here and she will tell you, how do you know when a Latina woman's lying? Her mouth is moving. If it's coming out of her mouth, it's a lie. 3 years later, my golden child sister was born. At the time, we moved to the suburbs, and my mother's mother moved in with us to care for me and my sister. My mother immediately found a job when we went to work. See, I'm buying the story about your grandfather less and less. Okay, because unfortunately, this is what Puerto Ricans did back then. They all had to get to New York City. They all had to get to New York City, and a lot of them would make up stories of abuse and this and that. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But I'm telling you, this has been the pattern. This was the pattern out of Puerto Rico going to New York City, or even the country in general. Look at the asylum case from the woman from Honduras, leaving her children with the husband, claiming abuse and claiming political asylum. The husband was a shipboat captain, had a good job, never did anything to her. This is what happens. My mother immediately found a job and went to work. My grandmother was elderly and handicapped with a serious autoimmune disease, but was able to keep us fed and safe while my mother was at work. My sister became like my grandmother's own child as she cared for her from birth. Yeah, because your mother didn't want to be a mother. Your mother probably liked the attention she got being pregnant, but she didn't want to be a mother. My sister was a very quiet and lovable child. I was loud and annoying because I was ignored, never allowed to go outside and watch TV all day long when not in school. The Diary of Anne Frank was my favorite book because the isolation was so relatable. I was told from a very young age not to go outside or else I was going to get kidnapped or molested. I was never allowed to sleep over anyone's house because she would tell me the other dad or brother would probably molest me. I think this is all a cover story. She had a lot of ignorant beliefs when it came to anatomy. She took me out of tap dancing because she said my uterus was going to fall on the floor. She told me her great-grandmother died of uterine cancer because she stepped over a cardboard box. The edge went up her vagina and she died of cancer. Yeah, she told me tampons would break me. She believed pinching caused cancer, and she warned me never to swim in a lake because something would crawl up there and I could die. My mother never put the central air on, even though it was suffocating in the house. She would say, don't think about it. During the winter, she kept the heat on 62 when it was freezing, and she would tell us to put on a coat even when we were sleeping. She had plastic duct tape over all the carpet, so when she sold the house, which didn't happen for 21 years, it would look new. Wow. I got a horrible stomach because she would go to every room to inspect, and typically found something we didn't do right, would yell for hours and hours and hours. However, if she sold a home, she was a realtor, she found the same conditions at the home, all would be well. My mother never hugged me. My mother never read to me. My mother never said she loved me. My mother's rage was stuff of nightmares, vein bulging, eyes popping out, and always was saying the worst things, especially directed at me. Stuff like, you are my father reincarnated and sent back to earth to punish me, or don't ever come to my way because I will jump out of the coffin and strangle you because you're the reason I'm there. I was 11, 12 years old when this stuff was happening. She was always going to the doctor and not telling me what was wrong, but acting like she'd gotten bad news. She was always faking heart attacks or strokes from when she was 35 years old. All she wanted was attention all the time. I don't believe the story about your grandfather. I don't believe it. I think she hated you. She wanted to destroy you. And your mother will lie about anything. Anything she will lie about. Fuck, she's a realtor. I mean, they're paid to lie. She even chooses a profession where you're a shady salesperson in line. She would tell me that putting a glass of water in my room would help absorb any evil spirits that were hovering around me. You would see it was working if there were bubbles in the glass. Well, I always had bubbles in the glass, so I became convinced the devil was coming for me. I suffered horrible nightmares, and up until I was 15, I would run into my parents' room, scared to death, begging to sleep with them because I saw the devil in my room. My mother and her precious sleep could never be disturbed, so I slept on my dad's side of the bed. I'm sure I kicked and was jumpy all night, so my poor father never got much sleep. It was at this time I started getting the rape talk. How if I ever got raped, tell the man to kill me first because it was a fate worse than death. She would clip articles out of newspaper and make me read them. All she was trying to do was make you afraid to have your own life. She wanted to destroy you. At this point, all I wanted to do was be a nun because she painted every man as a monster who only wanted one thing. When my dad would protest and say that he was a good person and not say that, my mother would say, well, you're not really a man. You're different. My mom would scream out demands and tasks that she needed done right then, and everyone had to jump immediately, even if it meant waking you up to wash dishes. My dad would hide in the attic and sleep when she would start screaming for him. My sister was always in her room, totally disconnected. When I was 17 and my sister was 14, the family, minus me, came home to find my grandmother had died on the floor. My family wasn't home for her because they dropped me off for my first date at a friend's house. When I came home, my mother told me my grandmother was dead, and the paramedics told her if she was there 5 minutes earlier, they could have saved her. Oh, your mother is fucking horrendous. Your mother is fucking horrendous. Lying bitch. I wanted to die. I killed my... You see, if your mother can lie to you like this, what makes you think she's not making up the story about her grandfather, her mother? Is all an excuse. It's all an excuse. They never stop lying. They never stop lying. I wanted to die. I killed my grandmother. And your mother wanted you to die. This is where I talk about the narcissist will drive you to kill yourself. This is it. I lived with that for 25 years until I asked my dad if that was true, and he said absolutely not. She was already cold and stiff. No one had said anything like that. She had been dead for quite a while, according to my dad. At 19, I went away to college and was raped as a virgin by a football player that lived 3 doors down from me. I was so naive I didn't realize things like that could really happen, despite all the warnings my mother gave me. I had very low social skills from all the isolation and little savvy with boys as I went to an all-girls high school. I felt like I was having an out-of-body experience and totally numb. I knew immediately that I couldn't tell anyone, because when your mother tells you that without your virginity you are no good to anyone, you believe that. I didn't tell my dad because he would have taken a gun and blown the guy away. I couldn't lose the only person who showed me any love and compassion. So by scaring you with rape, when it did happen, you had nowhere to turn to. So I turned to self-mutilation, cutting my arms and legs, became severely bulimic 5 times a day for 19 years. I just wanted my heart to stop. So here I am writing you, a happily married mother of 2 sons. I have been working with a therapist for 4 years and began to discover that I was a victim of emotional childhood abuse. Something that really shouldn't have been a surprise to me after she began performing an exorcism on me when I was pregnant with my 2nd son, because she said something was wrong with the way I was acting. I saw my mother give my sister love, then I saw her deliberately withhold it from me. As a child, of course, I assumed there was something I was doing wrong, because mothers are supposed to be programmed by nature to love their kids, right? So when I got married, my husband and I decided to live near my parents because I wanted my kids to have a nice relationship with them. This was prior to therapy. Something that soon fell to shit, as my sister, who lives an hour and a half away because the town we grew up in is beneath her, divorcing, leaving 2 kids that my mother insisted on raising so my sister could work. When I finally told my mother of the rape years later, she said, "Oh my God, I have to go home and think about this. How do you think this makes me feel, being the mother of a rape victim?" But I thought she was the daughter of a rape victim. I thought she was the daughter of a rape victim. repeatedly that she witnessed. Maybe not. Maybe not. I begged her not to tell my father I did not want to see him to see me in that gross way. When she called me from her home that night, I said, I had to tell your father. After all, we're married. But don't worry, I told him it was just something that got out of hand and it was no big deal. I just stared. This is the woman who grew up around rape? I don't think so. She's just a selfish liar. She's just a selfish, pathological liar. And unfortunately, this is what Latino women have a tendency of doing. Making up these crazy fucking stories and then putting it on their children. Charlene will tell you. She'll tell you right out. Don't believe anything that comes out of your mother's mouth, ever. Ever. When I became pregnant with my third child, I called my mother so excited and asked, do you love me? She answered, why? What did you do now? I said, I'm pregnant. She hung up on me. Because she's jealous. This was all an attempt. Everything she did was an attempt to get you to not have your own family. To make you miserable for your entire fucking life. You're married, right? Why would she hang up with, if you're married, why would she hang up on you if you're pregnant? You see, I had postpartum depression with my other two pregnancies and was under the care of a psychiatrist. So I got through it. Oh, okay, it was the third child. I gotcha. I love children, but she felt pressure that she might have to help me out and it would take away from her having her head up my sister's ass. Unfortunately, I lost my daughter at 16 weeks gestation due to a rare genetic mutation. I told my mother not to worry about having to help me because my baby died in my stomach. Once again, I asked her not to say anything because I was humiliated that this mutation happened and felt it was somehow my fault since I was such a piece of garbage. 2 weeks later, I go to her house to see sympathy cards littering her piano from her friends how sorry they were for the loss of her grandchild. She's a pathological, sociopathic narcissist. All about her. She made up that story about your grandmother. And maybe even got your grandmother to go along with it. Why? So they can move to New York City and she can find some guy that she could live off of. That's why. That's why. So she can find some American man to take care of her. That's why. That's why. And she never, because she's such a sociopath, narcissist, borderline, personality disordered monster. The children she had, she never wanted to see. She never wanted to see happy. Not you. You were the first one. You were the first wrecker of her good time. So she could put it all on you. Her and I tried therapy twice. Why? She's just going to sit there and lie to the therapist, make up stories, and gaslight and guilt you. Her and I tried therapy twice. I always cried the whole time, and she was always stoic. I turned to her once and asked if she could name one good thing about me. She said, well, you decorate nice Christmas trees. What did the therapist say to that? The therapist should have just stopped like, you know what? You know what? We could end this right here. Anonymous. This woman is toxic and you need to cut her out of your life for good. And you need to forget everything she ever told you. You need to question everything and anything the narcissist told you. Because they lie about it all. They will lie about anything. Most of my life has been devoted to trying to prove to God and others that I am not that bad. I never did drugs, always got good grades, never brought shame on the family, spent most of my life working at charities, trying to do good, taking on friends that sucked me dry with all their problems. Nothing ever made me feel like I was worth anything. Every time I started to feel happy, I immediately thought this feeling is not going to last, so why bother? Depression was constant. My mantra was, okay, one more day, one day closer to death. That would actually bring me comfort. That's what your mother wanted. The sympathy cards over your lost child should have told you everything you needed to know. Your mother has been driving you towards suicide the entire time. The entire time. Think about it. Think about if you had actually gone through it. The supply your mother would get from that. When I had 2 tumors in my breast, I felt an odd feeling of joy and relief. I was joking that I can't believe I'm going to beat my mother to the grave. I was so excited that I would get to shame her and punish her by making her watch me die. You weren't going to punish her or shame her. You were going to give her the supply, all the supply she ever wanted. Oh, my poor daughter dying from cancer. Boo, hoo, 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 hoo. All this pity supply, and please, that's what you were going to do. You don't understand your mother one bit. That's the problem. Because you don't understand that she's been lying to you about everything that's ever come out of her fucking disgusting mouth. Then I thought she'd probably make my death all about losing her child and not about me dying. Exactly. When I told her about the tumors, they turned out to be benign. She started blankly staring at me, reached out to hug me, first time in my life. She was, it was like, oh, not a bait. Death makes the death. She was so stiff and mumbled, you know I love you, right? Huh, I brought you cancer. That's what she wanted for you. Not children, cancer. So awkward, I pulled away and looked down and said, sure. I have been no contact with my mother and sister for 3 months. Yes, I still talk to my enabler dad, but I can't cut him out. I know that he allowed my mother to yell and scream at me, but he in his warped mentality, he figured because I was smarter than her, I would just brush it off like he did. He ain't brushing shit off. He's basically living the same life his father did with his insane mother. He found about as close of a clone to his own mother in yours. What's the difference? What's the difference? The difference is your mother could help it, his mother couldn't. He can't see the difference. I would submit his life was a lot worse than his father's was. We're taking it day by day, but I try to steal moments of laughter and happiness with him. Yet I do understand at age 80, his ultimate loyalty is with his own comfort and my mother. So my mother is getting desperate as this happens when you go no contact. She went through the stages of telling people she had to cut it off with me because I'm so negative, to writing a letter threatening my psychiatrist, accusing her of drugging me, saying she will sue her if I die. Oh, like my father wrote my therapist telling me if she's continued to see me, he'd sue her. We laughed. She blames my doctor for her family falling apart. My kids are in therapy to help explain why we don't talk to grandma anymore in an age-appropriate way. So here's my question. My mother claims she will submit to all my terms and do whatever I ask. No, she won't. She's a liar. She's a liar. She will say anything. She will say anything. She will not. I know there is 0% chance for a cure rate for narcissism, but if my mother really is mentally ill and willing to get help on her own, is that something I should be open to down the road? No. Because your mother's just saying I can lie to the therapist. I can tell all these bullshit stories. Your mother's got 80 years or 74 years of lying experience. Too late. The only reason she's doing this at all is because she's terrified. She's lost control of you. She's terrified she's lost control of you and she's going to be exposed for who and what she is. That's why. What would be her motivation at this point? After a lifetime of destroying you, why now? Because she loves you? Or because she just doesn't want to be exposed by you? It's the latter. And when it's the latter, they're going in it with bad intent. She's going in there thinking, I'm smarter than everybody. I've been lying for 74 years to everybody. All I got to do is get my fucking foot in the door, and I got her. She still has you because you're remaining anonymous and not exposing her for who she is. You're still hiding behind anonymity, which is what she wants. But she is terrified right now of the exposure. She's terrified of her lies being exposed, and that's what they all are. All of them are lies. All of them. I promise you. I promise you. All lies. There's no getting her back. There's no making her love you. There's no changing any of this. Any of it. The best thing you can do for your own mental health, your children's mental health, and your long-term health is to cut her out and make sure she stays cut out. She can't have much time left anyway. Don't give her something to live for. Don't give her something to live for. To lie to you, to further drive you down, because there would have been nothing that would have made her happier than to bury you and to get all that supply off it. Don't believe one story the narcissist has told you ever. Ever. And I hope that helps. So, thank you, Anonymous, for your contribution and your story. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody watching. Please leave any opinions or advice in the comment section below. And again, if you want your story read on the channel, you have a topic you'd like me to cover, a narcissist you'd like to expose, you'd like to set up Skype, a phone call, have a private video made, or a Facebook live chat, or you'd like to sponsor a video like this for someone who needs help and can't afford it, or just make a contribution to the channel in general to keep it supported, growing, and successful, because this channel survives 100% on contributions from all of you guys. Without you, all this goes away. So if you like what you see here and you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do with the PayPal and email links in the description box. Also, please like and share this video wherever you can. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and be sure to click the subscription bell to be notified of all my video uploads. I'm Ollie Matthews. This has been The Narcissistic Resistance. Take care.